29th August 2025. Mandera Governor Mohammed Adan Khalif claims that Jubaland forces have set up military camp in Mandera.
They have opened a camp in BP1. BP1 primary school is now closed. And there are people who want to do exam in the next 1 month. How do you close a public school and turn it into a military training camp? It is impossible.
By September 3rd, videos alleging to showcase Jubaland troop activities in Kenya began circulating online. On the same day, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen responds.
We cannot confirm now whether they were forces of where, who they are. It's only until you do proper security analysis and investigations that you get to know, is it forces, is it civilians, and so forth.
As Mandera residents seek assurances of their safety, the bigger question for many Kenyans is, who are Jubaland forces and what interest do they have in Kenya? Jubaland is one of Somalia's federal states. Its president is Mohamed Ahmed Madobe. Due to the relative weakness of Somalia's central government, Jubaland, along with other federal regions like Galmudug, maintain their own security forces or rely on militias. For Kenya, Jubaland serves as a buffer, absorbing instability before it reaches Mandera, Wajir, or Garissa. To fully explain this, we have to go back to the Scramble for Africa in 1884. At the Berlin Conference, European powers cut the regional Somali territory into 5 pieces: British Somaliland, now Somaliland; Italian Somaliland, currently southern Somalia; French Somaliland, presently Djibouti; the Ogaden, which is in Ethiopia; and the Northern Frontier District in Kenya, which makes up Mandera, Wajir, and Garissa. For Somali pastoralists, the new lines were devastating. See, for centuries they had moved freely with the rains, following grazing routes and water points. They intermarried, traded, fought, and reconciled across open lands. Now, suddenly, herders needed passes to water their camels and livestock, or were forced to cross colonial borders secretly at night. This left them feeling betrayed, disillusioned, and disenfranchised, and gave rise to the dream of a greater Somalia, a homeland that would reunite all Somali territories under one flag. When Somalia gained independence in 1960, its leaders embraced that dream, but Kenya, Ethiopia, and Djibouti refused to cede Somali inhabited territories. In 1962, residents of the Northern Frontier districts in Kenya overwhelmingly voted to rejoin Somalia. However, the British government ignored the results of this vote. See, for the British government, the Northern Frontier district acted as a buffer zone against clashes in Somalia. The region remained largely underdeveloped and tightly controlled. Its main ruse was to protect British-occupied highlands from the clashes ongoing in Somalia. At independence in 1963, Kenya inherited the region, sparking the bloody Shifta War. Ethnic Somalis in Kenya, backed by Mogadishu, tried to secede, but Nairobi cracked down brutally and eventually crushed the insurgency. The frustrations didn't end there. In 1977, Somalia launched a war with Ethiopia over the Ogaden region in another attempt to reclaim lost Somali territory. Once again, they were defeated, and with each defeat, resentment simmered. In 1991, Somalia's state collapsed. Warlords and clan militias tore the country apart. From this chaos, Islamist movements emerged. The Islamic Courts Union briefly united much of southern Somalia in the mid-2000s, but when Ethiopia invaded Somalia with US backing, a militant youth wing broke away. That youth wing became Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab rose to prominence on the promises of fighting corruption, resisting foreign interference, and continuing the struggle for Somali unity. Al-Shabaab began carrying out attacks across the Kenya-Somalia border. In their view, Kenya was both an invader of Somalia and an illegal occupant of the Northern Frontier District, which they sought to liberate. In 2011, a spate of kidnappings of tourists and aid workers in Lamu and Dadaab rattled Nairobi. In response, Kenya launched Operation Linda Inchi on October 16, 2011, sending troops into southern Somalia to push back the Al-Shabaab insurgents. When Kenyan forces crossed the border in 2011, one of their most important allies became Ahmed Mohamed Madobe. Yes, that Madobe. Once a militia commander with the Raskambodi Brigade, Madobe had fought both alongside and against Islamist movements before turning against Al-Shabaab. Together, they seized Kismayo in 2012, the port city that had been Al-Shabaab's financial hub. Out of that victory, Jubaland was born, and in 2013, Madobe declared himself president of this new federal state, stretching from Kismayo to the Kenyan border. Mogadishu rejected his claim, accusing Nairobi of propping up a proxy government. But secretly, Kenya continued to back Madobe because to them, the idea of a friendly Jubaland would act as a shield against Al-Shabaab. This is where things get tricky, because officially, Kenya only recognizes Somalia's federal government based in Mogadishu. However, in practice, Kenya has relied heavily on Madobe's administration to keep Al-Shabaab at bay. See, over time, as Kenyan forces were absorbed into the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, the day-to-day control of Kismayo and its hinterlands was left into Madobe's hands. This balancing act is what makes the current controversy so sensitive. See, Jubaland forces are currently in a clash with the federal government of Somalia. Jubaland troops crossing into Mandera are not just rogue soldiers. They are part of a political arrangement that Kenya itself had helped to create. Now, that arrangement is on a direct collision course with the fears of Mandera residents. Parents are pulling children from school, traders are watching markets empty, and in Nairobi, the government faces an uncomfortable question. Could Kenya's buffer be crossing the line into Kenya? And what are the implications of offering support to Madobe's men at the risk of angering Somalia, with whom Kenya has diplomatic ties?